associated with a horse trader. This may come as a shock to those of you who haven't been, but they don't always tell the truth. See, this trader stopped by the ranch the other day, and he's all set to wheel and deal, and he's buying horses, saddles, bridles, bits, anything he could buy or steal, and I got to thinking about old Pal. What that horse might bring, because he's parrot mouth and cowhawk and just turned 12 last spring. And anything he could do, he couldn't do very well, and I had him close at hand right out in the round corral. Well, that trader took one look at him, and Lordy, don't you know, he found a lot of other things wrong I didn't suppose it showed. So he'd make me an offer, and bite him off and chew, and I'd talk about how dry it was and what I thought the hay to do. We finally struck a deal way late in the day, and I had that money in my hand, and I watched him ride away. Well, then I got to thinking about that old horse, you see, and wondering where he'd wind up and who his new owner would be. Because you always had to rope him unless you had some oats or corn, and the old rascal was sure to blow up and buck on a wintry, frosty morn. Well, they're having a little sale down the road a little ways, so I thought I'll just drive on down, not having much to do that day. And I heard that trader's testimony with old Pal standing there about how he's safe for anybody. And you can catch him anywhere. And there's a lot of other things I didn't know you could do, like rope steers and calves off of him and pick up bucking horses too. So when the bidding started, I just jumped right in the game, and well, I guess I must not have quit in time because the ring man called my name. Yeah, it cost me about $500, and old Pal, he's mine once more. But, well, at least by grabs, he's 4 years younger now than he was when only before. I used to run a winter operation down on the Oregon border. I know some of you are familiar with northern Oregon. They got all these little towns out there, little farm towns, and every farm town has got a church. Every church has got a preacher, and they don't take too good a care of these preachers because there isn't that big a congregation, and there's 3 preachers that got together, and they decided they really wanted to go to this big preaching convention in Portland. So they all pooled their money, all jumped in the same car with their wives. They took off for Portland. And they're singing and having a wonderful time, went up over a hill, and there was a logging truck jackknifed in the middle of the road. They smashed right into that logging truck, killed all 6 of them. They wound up before this great white light. And his voice boomed out of this light and said, "Gentlemen, you have arrived at the great judgment seat, where you will be judged for all your deeds while you were on earth, be they good or be they evil." Well, these are men of God. They're not afraid. And so the first man stepped confidently forward and stood there, and the Lord said, "I have reviewed your life and found that for a man of God, you loved money a little more than I would require." He even showed up in the wife you chose. You chose a wife named Penny. He said, "You stand over there till I can figure out what to do with you." So the second preacher stepped confidently forward. And the Lord said, "I have reviewed your life and found that for a man of God, you loved material possessions a little more than I would require." It even showed up in the wife you chose. Chose a wife named Ruby. He says, "You stand over there till I can figure out what to do with you." Third preacher turned to his wife and says, "Boy, this don't look good for me. Come on, Fanny, let's go." Let's go. That's a true story. I had 2 really good friends up on the Canadian border. They had some nice big ranches up there, and they were both running them. And I'd go up and cowboy with them, and one of them's name was Cliffy. And Cliffy was my best friend, and I admired Cliffy so much because he's the only guy I knew who got kicked out of the country. absconded with some wild horses down in Nevada, and they caught him, so he had 12 felony counts against him, once for each horse. And Cliffy had an 8th grade education, and he actually inspired this poem. There's 3 cowboys from the eastern slope rode into town one day. Man, they're sick and tired of fighting those ringing cows to earn their pay, but an idea formed as they rode along, and after a short gestation, it hatched out with the idea they should get a new occupation. Perhaps they'd be a lawyer, or maybe even a teacher, but they're short on education, so they decided they'd be a preacher. Sure sounded like easy duty because you only work one day. The rest of the time you can go fishing. Of course, they've been told you're supposed to pray for the needs of all the people who go to church out there, but they figured they could flock shoot them and get them all with just one prayer. So they rode into the local preacher and they announced their intentions to him, and he said, "Boys, I've heard this all before, and it's usually just a whim, but if you're really serious about forsaking your life of sin, I have devised a little test that'll probably get you in." Now, Cliffy was the shyest. So he points him out right off. He says, "Tell me the meaning of Christmas." I heard old Cliffy cough. He says, "Well, Christmas was invented a long time ago when this guy got lonesome for that gal he used to know. So now we got to send those girls flowers and candy and stuff, and it don't matter what you send them, and they never near enough. And I'll be right honest with you, I never did take part because I don't need no little angels shooting arrows in my heart." The preacher couldn't believe it. He said, "Where's he from anyway? I asked him to tell me about Christmas. He's talking about Valentine's Day." So then he roped out Sweet William and he said, "Now, my question to you is, why is Thanksgiving important and who do you give thanks to?" Bill said, "Thanksgiving's the most important day of all. Only happens every 4 years and it's always in the fall." He says, "The boss takes us all to the Grange and we're all raring to go because we get to kick out those guys we elected 4 years ago." Now you ask about its meaning. Well, I guess the only reason is that Thanksgiving always marks the start of cabin season. The preacher couldn't believe it. He thought, where are these guys from anyway? Oh, I screwed up. It's all right. I haven't done this for 10 years. The preacher couldn't believe it. And something else happened. And he said, "Now before I kick you boys out, something else is going to happen." But he thought, "I'll give him just one more test." Told you. So he turned to the scholarly Frank and said, "Now before I kick you boys out, perhaps you'll be able to tell me what Easter is all about." Well, Frank is their ace in the hole. Their fate now rests on him because if he fails to answer the question right, then their chances of preaching is slim. Well, Frank became somewhat reverent. They even saw a tear in his eye. Said Easter happened a long time ago, 3 days after Jesus had died. Said they stuffed him in this hole that had been dug in the stone. They rolled a big rock in front of it and they left him all alone. 3 days went by and this lady went to visit his stony bed, and an angel told her joyfully he had risen from the dead. Now the preacher is really excited. Frank might make a preacher, he guessed, because he darn sure answered the question right, but he thought, well, I'll give him just one more test. He said, "Tell me, Frank, when he rose from the dead, just what does that mean to a sinner?" Frank scratched his head and finally said, "Well, if he sees his shadow, it means we got 6 more weeks of winter." I have some family who came here to see me. I have my sister and her boyfriend who came to see me, and I also have my niece and nephew and their brand new baby boy sitting right over there. All right. And the little rascal, they had quite a time getting here. There was a lot of tears and a lot of heartache to get that beautiful little boy here, and a lot of trips to the doctor, and you know, This happens to cowboys too, but it's a much simpler process, actually. Becky, this is for you. How to have a baby boy is a perplexing proposition, made even more complex if you're not in a sober condition. Well, such was the case a few years ago. Two cowboys sat in a bar, and Randy said, man, if there's any special methods, I'd sure like to know what they are. He said, we got 3 girls at home, and we'd like to have another kid, but we'd like to make sure it's a boy. He said, Randy, Tom, tell me what you did. Well, Tom was the proud father of 3 rambunctious males. He says, Randy, there's a pattern to follow, and I swear it never fails. He said, now women are plumb romantic. I know you're aware of that. So the next time you get amorous, take off your boots and your hat. You probably have no idea how much most women will dread getting wild and crazy and romantic when their husband wears spurs to bed. Said, now my wife talked to your wife, and the problem that I can see is that your idea of romance is saying, honey, turn off the TV. He said, now, geez, I screwed this up at Elum too, and this is good. I bet you can't wait to see what happens next. He said, Randy, I'll tell you a secret. Now, this is one I had to discover, but the way to have a baby boy is by being a really great lover. So here's what I want you to do. First, you got to get her in the mood. Now, you do this with grapes and wine and cheese, maybe some other dainty bits of food, and then you get her to relax. Give her a bath and a nice back rub. But you got to be kind of careful or she'll fall asleep in the tub. And get her out before she wrinkles. Take her quietly off to bed. Now, I know you're partial to sagebrush, but put flowers in there instead. And forget about Hank Jr. Put on some Patsy Cline. And then light some aromatic candles and give her a little more wine. And then you whisper sweet things in her ear. And when she's floating in the clover, pick up the phone and give me a call. By grabs, I'll be right over. It's St. Patty's Day, isn't it? Yes. Would you like to hear an Irish joke? Oh, sure. This Irishman got off the boat. New York City, French from Ireland. Walked right off the boat, went down the gangplank, went into the first Irish pub he could find, walked up to the bar, said, I'd like 3 shots of your finest Irish whiskey. So the bartender set a glass down and poured him a shot. He said, no, no. I said, 3 shots, that means 3 glasses right here. So the bartender poured him 3 glasses, and he says, why do you have to have 3 glasses? He said, well, I just got off the boat from Ireland. And he said, I left me 2 brothers back there, and I told them the first thing I do when I got to America was to each have us a glass of whiskey. So the 3 glasses, 1 for me and 1 for each of the 2 brothers, it's kind of like a little reunion. The bartender said, oh, that's just beautiful. So every month the guy would walk in there and sit down at the bar and order 3 shots of Irish whiskey. And this went on for quite a while, and then he walked in there one day and he walked up to the bar and he said, I'd like 2 shots of your finest Irish whiskey, please. And the bartender poured him the 2 shots, but he's worried because he's thinking maybe one of his brothers died or something. So finally he couldn't stand it anymore. He says to the guy, he says, excuse me, but you always order 3 shots, 1 for you and 1 for each of your 2 brothers. Are your brothers all right? He said, oh yeah, he says, me brothers are just fine. It's just that I quit drinking. How many of you were here last year? Most of you, so you've heard all this before. But you can't remember, can you? I got a friend of mine in Wyoming, Mick Taser, and he did one I thought was really cute, and I always give Mick credit for it. and it's called breeding fees. This rancher went to town one day, and he left his boy alone to take care of everything the short while that he'd be gone, but before he left, he gave instructions about the breeding fees because he had 3 bulls of varying degrees. The best of the bulls was purebred and of the finest blood, and it cost $100 every time he went to stud. The second of the bulls was purebred, and though he had no papers, it still cost $50 each time he cut his capers. And the last of the bulls was neither purebred or pedigreed. It only cost $25 to get some of his seed. Well, the boy said he understood, and his dad went off to town about an hour later. This customer come right. He's wanting to get his milk cow bred. He's after a nice big calf. Best of the bulls is $100, and the second only half. Deciding on the second bull, the man went along his way, and later there's 3 or 4 more customers happened by that day. This boy's feeling good, man. His day is going great. He's rented out all 3 bulls for his dad's expected rate. But then came a knock upon the door by this grumbled gent, inquiring if his dad was home, and if not, where had he went. Well, the boy saw this as another chance to do more dissertating. If it's about the bulls, he said, there's no need for waiting. The best of the bulls is $100. He's pure and guaranteed pedigreed. Second of the bulls is $50. He's pure and guaranteed. And though he has no papers, his dance card's pretty full, and the last of the bulls is $25. He's just a plain old bull. It's not about the bulls, the man said. It's about your oldest brother. He's been more than friendly with my daughter. Now I fear she'll be a mother. Well, taken back but briefly, the young man thought for just a second. He's not about to be outdone, but man, this is more than he had reckoned. You're just going to have to talk to my dad, was the young man's druthers, because I have no idea what he charges for my brothers. If you were here last year, Hank Kramer was here. Remember Hank? Hank is a good friend of mine, and we've done a lot of stuff together. But the truth is that Hank, he's a thief. And what Hank steals is jokes. And he always steals my jokes. Isn't that right, Alan? So I finally come up with a joke I don't think he can steal. Goes like this. Guy got pulled over for speeding, and the cop walked up to the car, and he said, what's your name, mister? I said, George. I said, George what? I said, that's it, George. He said, no, I need to know your last name. He says, don't have a last name. He says, everybody's got a last name. What happened to yours? I said, lost it. He said, how can you lose a last name? He said, well, it happened like this. He said, when I was a young boy, my name was George Dingling. And he said, I guess you know with a name like that, I caught a lot of flack from my friends. And I vowed someday I would make George Dingling an honorable name. So he said, when I graduated from high school, I went to college and became a doctor. Then my name is George Dingling, M.D. Well, I didn't think that gave me enough credibility, so I decided to pursue my true love, which was dentistry. So I went to dental college and became a dentist. Now my name is George Dingling, M.D. D.D.S. Well, then I got fooling around with the secretary, and she gave me V.D. So I'm George Dingling, M.D. D.D.S. D.D. And then the AMA found out about the V.D. and took away my M.D. Now I'm George Dingling, D.D.S. D.D. And then the ADA found out about the V.D. and took away my D.D.S. And then the V.D. took my Dingling, and now I'm just George. You haven't heard that, have you, Alan? No. I recorded it. I got see what else I got. I got a lot of stuff, but you wanted to take a break.
Take a break.
We'll take a break.